right, our interview segment. This is always really a lot of fun because we like to think we've got a very diverse group that joins us on a week-to-week basis. And this week's guest is Matt Iseman. You know him from American Ninja Warrior. You may not know that he's a guy graduated from Princeton with honors, got his MD at Columbia, was at Colorado, in Denver, the university. With his residency. I mean, this guy was going to be a full-on doctor, and he decided to go into entertainment and comedy. So we'll get to a little bit to the bottom of that and a little bit other stuff. But joining us now is Matt Iseman. Matt, welcome.
I appreciate it. And for the record, as my dad points out, son, you are a doctor, even if you're not practicing. So I ended up getting the MD.
Yeah.
And probably for the safety of all involved, I did move on, which is great. But my dad always tells me, just as a subtle message, the medicine's always waiting for you, champ.
That's right. It's always just right there. They call it They call it practicing for a reason. You just are a little out of practice.
Well, yeah. At this point, I think I'd be more of a hazard than anything. But it's been interesting because, I obviously have quite a few friends who've stayed in medicine, and medicine has changed a lot. And I was just about a month ago, I did an event with a friend of mine from residency who's an interventional cardiologist in San Diego. And he was just saying the difficulty, compensation's down so much, stress levels are as high as ever, but it's just harder and harder to make a living as a doctor. And it was, that wasn't the reason I left. I left really to find my passion, but it's feeling more and more like I made the right decision, finding something that I really love doing in entertainment.
Well, what was it when you look back that was sort of the genesis point of going from the MD world to the comedy world? And you started in improv, right? It was sort of like, was that kind of like a stress relief?
Yeah, it really was. It was during medical school. I had a friend who took me out to some open mics, and just for fun. And then when I realized, I had an epiphany. I remember I was in the intensive care unit. It was January, and we're getting slammed with patients. It's probably 4 a.m, and it just dawned on me, like, these people are placing their lives in my hands, and I just felt like I wasn't as passionate or as involved as I should have been. And it was an awful feeling, realizing I felt like I was kind of doing it half-assed. And I think there are a lot of jobs you can do that way, but not medicine. I think it's a calling. So that's when I realized I need to take time to do something else. And it wasn't as though I said, I know I'm going to become a comedian, become successful. It was more, I got to take a year and clear my mind. I got to try something I've never done. I'd never done anything creative. So I thought, look, you could be a ski bum, you could travel the earth, or move to LA, try stand-up for a year. And honestly, Randy, going into it, I thought, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to realize medicine's a great career and the grass isn't greener on the other side. And I thought I'd come back a better man and become a doctor and live my life like that. Instead, within a few weeks, I realized I am never going back. I found what I was meant to do.
Yeah, who knew Peter Pan would win?
That is just, as my mom has pointed out, I truly am the Peter Pan syndrome come to life. Telling jokes and talking about ninjas is my job description.
Well, it's funny. You and I met. We were on the Greg Gutfeld show, who's been on my podcast before, and that was right before the Super Bowl, like almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, back in Houston.
Yeah. In fact, we got to get Gutfeld and tell him he's got to have us back on when the Super Bowl's down here in Atlanta. What do you think?
I love that. Gutfeld's great. He's what I love about him is he brings a good sense of entertainment to something that needs it in the news, I think. And Greg is always well informed, but I like it that he doesn't take himself too seriously.
No, I think he's a very funny guy, and the number one person he cracks up the most is himself.
Yeah. I gotta say, I think I do the same too. There's no bigger fan of me than me, so I probably share that with Gutfeld.
Yeah.
But the thing I think that's infectious about that, Randy, is he's having a good time, and I always felt when we went on the show, and I love you're someone who's really not afraid to speak his mind, and he makes you feel comfortable. He's having a good time, and he lets you speak your mind, and he doesn't ever, I think he entertains different opinions, but he always has a sense of humor about it. And to me, I think he brings out a better conversation instead of those shows where you watch and people are yelling over each other. which I just find insufferable. I don't think you're changing anybody's mind by just raising your voice.
Well, that's just called news.
Yeah.
It's
not news, it's opinions. And that's,
yeah.
I think people tune in to kind of have their opinions validated, which I understand, but I think it's unfortunate where I don't feel we're as divided as we think we are. I just think that when you turn on the news and you see people yelling, it feels so divided. And I think there's some issues we have and some big issues we're facing, big decisions we have to make. But I think by and large, we're on the same page more. It's just the issues where there are the differences are the ones that are amplified and screamed about all the time.
Yeah, this interview finds you down in Florida, ironically, speaking of the news, doing a little promo work for the shows, Universal Studio, yes, and whatnot. Florida's in the news, seems to be constantly in the news for kind of strange reasons, but are you going to be able to help them out with this ballot thing?
Listen, I my vision is terrible. I'm not a strong counter. I don't understand how in 2018 ballots can be compromised this way.
Yeah.
And the key to democracy, as we've seen, is trusting, or a constitutional republic is trusting that your voice and your vote is heard and heard accurately. And if we can't rely on that, that becomes an issue. And seeing these people who, particularly given that Florida, this is not the first time it's happened. I think those are the things that, because they give people a reason to doubt the results, or, to doubt the authenticity or authority that our elected officials have. And that becomes an issue because it distracts them from dealing with the issues we're electing them really to handle. To turn on the news and see these trash bags full of ballots being loaded around, it certainly doesn't inspire confidence here.
Oh, did I leave that over there?
They're good at amusement parks, so maybe they should just stick to that. The lost ballot ride, something where you just jump in kind of a pool filled with ballots that were cast aside.
You're in a great business besides being entertainment, like with American Ninja Warrior, working with my guy Akbar Baja Biamila, who's a good foil for you on that show.
Yeah.
You do comedy, you do stand-up, and you're always kind of on the go in various parts of the country. It doesn't seem like people laugh enough lately, at least. It seems like everyone walks around half pissed off.
I totally agree, Randy. I think that's one of the great things. That's, again, why I love Gutfeld and why I love stand-up is I think a lot of times it's easier to talk about delicate issues or to talk about them through using a little bit of humor and kind of disarming people and laughing and saying, look, we all share this sense of humor, and the idea that you can't, I firmly believe you can laugh about anything. Mm-hmm. I personally have rheumatoid arthritis. I've had cancer. And anytime I tell those stories, I try to make them funny as hell because I feel like you can either cry about it or you can laugh about it. And I think people take their cue from how you feel about it. And, when people go around angry, you make other people angry. And I just wish that we really could. I thought seeing Pete Davidson on SNL have was it the congressman on, the man Dan? I'm blocking his name. Chapman, who lost his eye, and that guy came on and said, I'm not choosing to be offended, I'm choosing to laugh. And he proved it going on there and making a joke about it. And I thought, wow, if everyone would do that rather than being offended, leaning into it and going, you know what, your words aren't really hurting me here, I could find something funny about this. And this guy who we thought, everyone was trying to pick a fight between them, and instead Chapman completely flipped it, goes in there and owns it and laughs, and I think gets everyone's respect and also diffuses the situation. And I don't like the idea of, the people were calling for Pete Davidson to lose his job. I'm like, that's ridiculous. The guy's job is to make a joke, and whether it's appropriate or not, he wasn't trying to be serious. He was trying to be funny. Yeah. And I love that Chapman, a politician, had a sense of humor about it. Look, obviously this guy has plenty of reasons, having seen combat, having obviously experienced this traumatic injury, he has plenty of reasons not to laugh. And if he can laugh, I think the rest of us can find some jokes too.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I was very skeptical because I had just got back from my game. I had Temple at Houston on Saturday night, which is one of those,
Yeah.
the new kind of defense optional games. It was 59-49 with like 1,100 yards offense.
Like a video game.
It was like it was like NCAA 18. It was ridiculous, but it was exciting. It was fun to watch and whatnot. I turned on the TV and I thought I was seeing something old because I saw those two. And then all of a sudden I looked down and I went, no, that's not a fake congressman-elect. That's really him. And he's sitting there and I'm watching, and I didn't see anything funny per se, even out of Davidson. And then went till the very end, and then his phone goes off, and it's an Ariana Grande song. Yeah. And that's completely it just cracked me up, but it also cut any kind of tension they were even going to think about having.
And I love someone who's willing to go into, what would be quote unquote unfriendly territory.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of, how you change people's minds? You have a conversation with them. You go in there face to face. And you say, what do you think? Honestly, what do you think? And here's what I think. And let's find our areas of agreement rather than focusing on the areas of difference. Because again, as Americans, I really do believe that on the vast majority of really big issues, we're on the same page. We want the same things. We may disagree about how to do it, but I think everybody here is still pretty well intentioned and cares about humanity and the earth as a whole. And I don't like the idea of these shows that kind of amplify the differences and do it through yelling and looking for these gotcha moments and trying to tear people down. It's like, look, everyone's in a glass house. Everybody has something they've done that, if it were brought up, we'd be embarrassed about it. We'd have to explain.
Guaranteed.
It. Yeah. So it's this idea of, who do we want to be our politicians? There's nobody who's going to be perfect. So let's find people who are willing to do the job and people who we think will put country and service ahead of themselves.
Yeah. I just out of curiosity, speaking of something topical, how about these fires in California in general, specifically in Southern California? Do you have any friends, family, anybody else really directly affected by these?
Yeah, no, quite a few friends who were in the area, some people who've lost their homes. And again, it's amazing living as we see some of these areas, whether it's hurricanes or, we always talk about the earthquake where I'm from. I'm where I am, I'm a little safer. I'm a little more centrally located, but a lot of friends whose houses have either been taken or are in jeopardy. And it's one of those things though, where, what's really tragic are the firefighters who pass away, are those people who don't get out. You just feel like you just want people to say, look, things can be replaced. Your house can be replaced. Yep. You lose some memories. That's okay. But what's really important is just take care of yourself, because as tragic as, losing a home and traumatic as it can be is, again, like if you have your health, you can always start over. And, but it's just, it really is scary when you see the force of nature and how these fires can spread. And when the winds get going, how powerless we are for some of these things, or when the hurricanes come in. But I also think it's what brings out it gives us a chance to see the best of humanity and see those people, these firefighters and these first responders who are putting themselves in harm's way to get people out or to get pets out. I mean, it's just remarkable when you see the best in people. I think those are the kind of moments that I really think define America, that we really thrive on and that we need more of.
Let's finish on that. That's a great point. And hopefully from your lips to God's ears. Matt, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me.
It was a pleasure.
All right, man.
Get on Gutfeld. We'll meet you down in Atlanta. All
right, it sounds good. We may not be on the show, but it's a date.
Yeah, I'll do that. We'll have a beer.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Randy. Bye.
Oh, well, thank you to Matt. That was great stuff. And as you can see, very, very diverse guy. Very diverse guy and a very funny guy. Highly educated, too. Pretty amazing. You learn something fantastic about somebody when you take the time to actually talk to them.